Fuck me, man. This is from Right Wing Watch People 4. Christian nationalist pastor Joel Webbon says, this nation is for us.
All right, so I'm going to play this. I'll put this on the big screen for us.
Jews cannot hold public office. They can live here and they can live here peacefully and all these kinds of things. But no, this is a Christian nation, and those who reject Christ and hate Christ, they can be in the car, and we shouldn't mistreat them, but they don't get to drive. Listen to me, Christian, you are allowed to have a country. You are. It is okay to say, no, that this country, this nation is for us and our posterity. It's not for Hindus. It's not for Muslims, and it's not for Jews. It belongs to Christians.
They've been rewriting this for a long time, Tom. There's been this sort of rewriting of the sort of American experience by these Christian nut jobs to try to make it seem like America is only for white Christians. And they've been talking about it for in all these different places. And this is just one of the mouthpieces that says it, but a lot of people believe it.
Yeah.
There's a thing I saw this week. There's a fella by the name of Sam Setter. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. He does a show called The Majority Report. Is it Majority or Minority? I don't know. It's one of those. It's a majority or minority. Yeah, I'm not sure. But he does a YouTube show.
Is that the show with the precogs floating in the water bath, the milk bath or whatever?
What's that? Oh,
the Minority Report, where the precogs are floating around in that water bath and they tell Tom
Cruise
when someone's going to get murdered.
It's got to be majority then, because minority is like thought police.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, that's coming.
I guess that's coming too, but it's Majority Report. So he does a show where he does like a talk show, and then he gets people to call in. Sometimes he debates people, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know a ton about him, but I watched him this week. There was a video of one guy on the left versus 20 MAGAs is what it was. And so he sits in a chair in the middle of this circle of people, and then they say, okay, go. And someone just fucking runs
into the chair,
sits in the chair and says, hi, how you doing? And then they argue. And at a certain point, everybody around has flags. And at a certain point, if they think the person who is arguing their point, because they're all on the same team, is failing, they start raising their hand with their flag. So they raise their flag in the air. And if I don't know how many flags it takes, but that's enough to be like, okay, that person has to get out now because they're losing so badly. And there was a girl who sat in front of him that was saying the United States is a white Christian nation. Like it's for whites and it's for Christians. It's not for anybody else. And this is just this isn't like a thought person, right? Like this guy, right? This is just a person, a person who identifies with that group. They think that that's the case. We grew up totally different. Our whole experience growing up was I was always told this is a melting pot.
Yeah,
this
same.
This is the thing. We're all gonna, be a melting pot, and there's gonna be different cultures and different stuff. And those cultures, those hard edges are gonna bump up against one another. But that's the beauty of being a United States citizen, is that, some of that stuff. And I always grew up. I never, even though my parents were, I don't know that they were conservative. I know that they were conservative in a sort of social sense. I don't think they were conservative fiscally, but I think they were conservative in a social sense. Even they never said to me that the United States, speak English here in the United States. Even they knew that the United States didn't have an official language until Trump wrote an executive order about it recently.
Jesus fuck. Yeah. Did he really?
I think he did. I think it was
he fucking wrote an executive order about a fucking
English is our official.
Is that
language.
the one he picked? Really?
Yeah, that's the one he picked out.
You'd think he'd learn to fucking speak it, huh?
Yeah, well, you think he would actually have to be able to be proficient in it. He would have to be proficient in it before he actually chose it. But I knew you grew up in that same culture.
I did, yeah. Like we learned as young people, and I think it's right, we learned that diversity is strength.
Yeah.
That the history of our country is a history, sometimes a deeply, deeply troubled, often, always, a deeply troubled one of a mix and a clash and a melding of all different peoples and cultures and music and, foods and influences and strengths. And that is what America was. America was the Ellis Island. Yeah. That was the dream of America, is to come as an immigrant to America to seek your fortune. It was these were like the the media that we were sort of exposed to, and the stories about like our grandfathers and our fathers and our that came over, and the boat on all of that mythos, none of that needed or required white Christians only.
Yeah.
It didn't, none of that was built in. The opposite was baked in, right? The opposite of that stuff was always how I had these ideas implanted into my head as a young person. I guess maybe indoctrinated into these ideas as a young person, but they also match the actual history of this country. They match the actual, like objectively true history of a multinational, multicultural country. I listen to that thing and I'm like, why do you want that? Like, what do you want out of that? Like, what do you want out of this? Like, what, like when he says like everybody can be in the car, but only we can drive is what he says. When I heard that, I was like, well, why? And then the answer is fucking obvious. It's because he wants to control where we're going. And where he wants to go is to a fucking gulag so he can drop off all the passengers that aren't fucking him.
Yeah.
Like they pretend at this sort of like noise making that this is nonviolent. But that's not what they believe.
Yeah.
If you really believed that everybody in that car was your equal, then you would behave that way. But you can't have inequality that's not violent. All inequality is violence. Inequality equals violence. Again, People 4 from Right Wing Watch. This is Nick Fuentes praises Joe Rogan and others for helping to spread the message about Jewish control. So, cool.
It's been a while since we had Nick on the show.
Dude, if Nick Fuentes ever praised me, like I don't even care if I made a chocolate lava cake and Nick Fuentes was like, Tom made an awesome chocolate lava, I would never make that chocolate lava cake again. You know what I mean?
I do.
Like if Nick Fuentes is on your side, I'm not on that side anymore.
You want to check out at that point. Be like, no, I made a huge mistake in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, here he is.
Candace on Theo Von. And Theo Von's clearly red-pilled. Stephen A. Smith had Candace Owens on. He's clearly red-pilled. Jason Whitlock is praising Andrew Tate. He's clearly red-pilled. Andrew Tate is on Nelk, red-pilled. Tate is on PBD, spreading the message. Ian Carroll on Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan seems to be, I don't know if we could say he's red-pilled, but certainly he hints every now and again that he knows maybe more than he lets on. So it is a very exciting time, and I love to see it. It does make me very happy, and it's very white-pilling because, like I said, 10 years ago, when I went to Charlottesville and we said Jews will not replace us, that sort of encapsulates both of the problems, right? Which is replacement migration and if Jews run society, are they not responsible? Back when I did that, I was radioactive, I was ostracized, I was canceled. They said my career was over. And largely it was the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro who were responsible for that. And they were untouchable at that point. And what a long decade it has been. What a long 8 years it has been since that time. And now it's almost reversed. Daily Wire is crashing and burning, desperate for relevance. Candace Owens has gone independent, going full red pill, talking about the things I've talked about on this show for years. It seems like the message is finally getting out there. So it's pretty remarkable to see.
Sure is. Pretty remarkable to see the backsliding of American values into chaos and white supremacy.
Can we fucking stop talking about pills?
Yeah, man.
Can we fucking, I don't know what the fucking, I mean, I would imagine a white pill.
I feel like I know what that is.
I feel like I know what the white pill is, and I feel like I know what the red pill is. Fucking, I can't believe these people. And what you're seeing is, you're seeing a I told you so. Mm-hmm. Like, I was a hateful racist years ago. I was a hateful racist before it was cool.
Yeah, man. That's the line. Yeah.
I was a hateful racist before it was cool, and now look at all these racists. Yeah. Look at all these racists coming out of the woodwork. And he's naming shows I didn't even heard.
I've never heard any.
I didn't even heard of that stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of people out there that are getting their information from these places. They're not bothering to get it on their own anymore, and they're listening to, you know, and a person who's saying everyone is out there to get you, everyone's against you. I'm the only one who can help you. I'm one of these people who's, I'm going to peel back the layers of this onion. I know how the conspiracy works. And there's a ton of people in the United States that are believing everything that they have to say. And Nick Fuentes, as shitty and as horrible a person as he is, as terrible as a person as he is, he's a relevant figure in that group.
He is. He's a relevant figure. And what he's pointing at is terrifying, right? Because what he's pointing at is like, hey, it used to be that we lived in a country of standards and social decency, where being an out and out racist and anti-Semitic bigot was a problem. And isn't the last decade been great? Because now I, as a racist and an anti-Semite and a bigot, have been empowered and emboldened and in fact lifted up by this new power structure.
He's talking and he's saying like, Ben Shapiro is, now look at how irrelevant he is. Make no mistake, Ben Shapiro is also your enemy, right?
Yeah, right.
Like anybody out there who's parroting even some of these views is your enemy. They don't like you. They don't care. They want to see bad things happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see bad, violent things happen to you. So they aren't your friends. So even if he's against like Ben Shapiro, it's not an enemy of my enemy situation. They're both enemies.
Right, yeah.
They're both in the same bag. Whether or not they hate each other, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, well, because that's important too, I think, because they all hate each other, right? But they're all the bad guys. Like Candace Owens. Like, do I think that Nick Fuentes is pro Candace Owens, a black woman? No, he's a fucking misogynist and a racist. She is just another useful idiot.
Yeah, she's just saying the same things he wants her to say right now.
So he's pleased that there is a world full of useful idiots, right? But he sees them as only useful idiots. And they see him the same way. They all think they're using each other. The right is convinced of this, I'm sure of it, that they are all using each other.
Yeah.
I'm just using that guy and his influence and his market and his audience. But, like he's just a fucking useful idiot. And they're all doing that with each other. And somehow they've managed to cobble together this amalgamation, this fucking evil political Voltron that is MAGA. And they don't have strength through their diversity. They have weakness through their diversity. And it is a weakness that we on the left can exploit. But we can only exploit the weakness of that like weak amalgamation if we don't do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? On the left, what we need to do, and we've talked about this, like it is urgent that we do not form a shit Voltron, right? That we form the good one, right? That holds together, that says, I'm grateful to have you. We disagree about things, maybe even important things. But what we don't disagree about is the decency of human people, right? And the sanctity of dignity of the human animal, right? Like what we don't disagree about is like caring for one another as a real personal, political, and social value. What we don't disagree about is a lot more than what we do.
Yeah.
So we can have disagreements. You don't have to be the perfect leftist. You don't have to be the perfect centrist. What you have to be is not right wing.
Yeah.
The right wing, they don't like each other. That's a weakness. We can exploit it. We should exploit it. We can't do it if we do the same if we have the same problem. We can't do it if we build the same exact weak shit Voltron.